Every police officer who has ever been shot and survived owes their life to a chemist who is supposed to be working on tires. Do you know her name? Most people don't. And that absence, that quiet gap in the record, is itself part of the story. Her name was Stephanie Kwolek. And what she found one unremarkable day in a DuPont laboratory in 1965 would go on to save thousands of lives, reinforce suspension bridges, protect astronauts in space, and quietly weave itself into the infrastructure of the modern world. None of that was the plan. The plan was to make a better tire. Kwolek was born in 1923 in New Kensington, Pennsylvania, the daughter of Polish immigrants. As a child, she spent hours drawing clothes and sewing. She had thoughts of becoming a fashion designer. By the time she reached university, those ambitions had shifted toward medicine, and in 1946, she graduated with a Bachelor of Science in Chemistry from the Carnegie Institute of Technology, the institution now known as Carnegie Mellon University. Medical school was the destination, but medical school required money she didn't yet have. So, she did what many people do. She took a job to bridge the gap. She applied to DuPont's Rayon department in Buffalo, New York. DuPont had introduced nylon just before the Second World War, and in the post-war years was driving aggressively into the synthetic fibers market, certain that chemistry held the key to materials that nature had never produced. They hired Kwolek. She sat down at the bench, and she never left. The years passed, the work deepened, and by 1964, Kwolek was part of a research group at DuPont's pioneering research laboratory in Wilmington, Delaware, pursuing a specific and practical objective. With a potential fuel shortage on the horizon, the company wanted a new synthetic fiber, lightweight but strong enough to replace the heavy steel belting inside car tires. Something that could reduce the weight of the tire, improve fuel efficiency, and hold up under the sustained stress of the road. The brief was clear. The goal was industrial, and bulletproof vests did not appear anywhere in the discussion. Then came 1965 and the cloudy liquid. Kwolek had been working with a class of polymers called aromatic polyamides, long, rigid molecular chains that were notoriously difficult to handle. Most polymers, when dissolved into a solution for spinning into fiber, produce a clear, smooth, viscous liquid. What Kwolek produced one day was none of those things. The solution was cloudy. It was milky and opalescent when stirred. It was thin, far too low in viscosity to behave the way a spinnable solution should. By every standard measure of the laboratory, by everything that polymer chemistry had established up to that point, the solution looked wrong. It looked contaminated. It looked like a mistake. Any other chemist would have thrown it away. The protocol essentially demanded it. A cloudy solution almost certainly meant particulate matter, which would clog the spinneret, the fine-tipped instrument used to draw liquid polymer into the thread, and ruin the equipment. The results would be useless. The effort would be wasted. Move on and try again. Kwolek did not throw it away. She brought the solution to the technician responsible for running the spinneret. He refused. The liquid was too fluid, he told her. It was cloudy. It wouldn't spin. She was convinced otherwise and pressed him until he agreed to try. The solution fed through the spinneret. The fiber emerged. The results came back from testing, and in Kwolek's own words, they were unbelievable. The fiber was 5 times stronger than the same weight of steel. It was lightweight, heat-resistant, and structurally unlike any synthetic material that had ever been produced. What she had stumbled into by refusing to discard something that looked like a failure was an entirely new class of material. A liquid crystal polymer. A substance whose molecules aligned themselves in a rigid parallel structure that gave the resulting fiber a strength-to-weight ratio that simply should not have been possible. Her supervisor recognized it. Her laboratory director recognized it. DuPont management moved quickly, assembling a dedicated team to explore the discovery from every angle. In 1971, the commercial product reached the market under the name Kevlar. The tire application was real. Kevlar did find its way into tire belting, but someone else had been paying attention. Lester Shubin was a researcher at the National Institute of Law Enforcement and Criminal Justice, an arm of the United States Justice Department. And in the early 1970s, he was preoccupied with a straightforward and urgent problem. Police officers were being shot and killed at a rate that existing body armor could do nothing about. The vests available at the time were heavy, rigid, and impractical for daily wear. Officers simply didn't use them. In 1971, Shubin began advocating for something different. He had read about the material DuPont had developed for tire belts and saw it in an entirely different application. By 1975, commercial vests made entirely from Kevlar were available for law enforcement. The first test came almost immediately. A Seattle police officer was shot in the chest. He survived. Over the course of a single year-long demonstration project, 18 separate incidents were recorded in which Kevlar vests successfully protected officers who had been shot. 18 people who, in any previous decade, would almost certainly have died. The number has grown considerably since then. According to records maintained jointly by the International Association of Chiefs of Police and DuPont's own Kevlar Survivors Club, bullet-resistant vests have saved the lives of more than 3,100 law enforcement officers in the United States alone. Research has found that Kevlar armor provides a 95% probability of survival after a hit from a .38 caliber round, a figure that would have been unthinkable to anyone working in body armor before 1965. The material increases overall survival chances after shooting by more than 30%. These are not statistics. They are names. They are people with spouses and children and parents who came home when they should not have. And the reach of that cloudy, discarded-looking solution has spread far beyond policing. Kevlar today reinforces the cables of suspension bridges. It is woven into the hulls of racing sailboats and the suits of astronauts operating in orbit. It strengthens brake pads, ski blades, fiber optic cables, and hundreds of industrial and consumer products across dozens of industries. The material generates hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue each year. It is everywhere, doing its quiet, structural work entirely invisible to the people whose lives it holds together. Stephanie Kwolek did not become a billionaire. She was a DuPont employee, and the patent, as was standard, belonged to the company. What she received instead were honors that came slowly and late. Induction into the National Inventors Hall of Fame in 1995, and the National Medal of Technology in 1996, and occasionally something more difficult to categorize. She spoke once about receiving a visit from a group of state troopers whose lives had been saved by her fiber. They came with their wives, their children, their parents. She called it a very moving occasion. It's not hard to understand why. The child who once spent her afternoons drawing dresses and sewing fabric ended up inventing one of the most consequential materials in human history. By accident, while trying to solve an entirely different problem. By refusing to follow the rule that said, throw it away. Stephanie Kwolek died on June 18, 2014, at a hospice in Wilmington, Delaware. She was 90 years old. The material she discovered that day in 1965, the cloudy solution that looked like nothing, is at this moment being worn by police officers in every country in the world. The fiber that was never supposed to spin. The discovery that was nearly discarded. The name that most people don't know. Now you do. If this story stayed with you, consider sharing it. And if there's a hidden history you think deserves to be told, leave it in the comments below.